Welcome, everybody. Yeah, Russ is back here again with an almost post-harvest edition of the Better Crops by Barker video series. Of course, the corn crop isn't completely harvested yet. However, the bulk of it is off. Enough of it's off that we've pretty much got a grip on the various things that have happened out in our fields. Happened out to the hybrids that we planted this past spring. And if you wanted a year that kind of put a lot of challenges toward a corn plant in some respects, this year was one that fit the books. We had late May planted corn. We had first week in June planted corn. Had a bit of dry weather for in some areas locally that were a little tough there in the latter part of July and into August. Of course, it was late flower, late season grain fill. A lot of grain fill had to occur during those dwindling daylight days, the dwindling daylight hours of late September and early October. And you add all that up together, it was not an easy road for the corn plant to travel down. However, I must give a strong shout out to the respective corn breeders that have brought some of the products forward that we have the pleasure of planting in our fields today. There's been some outstanding performance, unbelievable performance. Who would expect June planted corn? An example is Pioneer 9404, planted on the 7th of June, running 200 bushel at 24% moisture. And phenomenal performance from not only that hybrid but some others. Really the only I mean, we have the skill of ourselves and the skill of you as producers that know how to grow a crop, but the foundation of it is based with the breeders and the type of genetics that they have been able to bring forward. Tremendous results that they have given us. Now, it's not all nice clean sheets and fluffy pillows out there. There's been a number of situations where yields are disappointing, standability is not the best, test weight's a little on the low side, but fortunately elevators aren't hammering us too hard on the discounts with respect to test weight, and high moistures. A number of fields that are still hanging up moisture ranges in the mid 30% range. Just that corn just does not seem to want to dry. When you do thrash that off, grind it off, you're getting a high percentage of fines, more dock than what you'd like to see, and certainly some issues with plug screens and combines, plug sieves, and dryer fire too as well. But the reason why that corn just doesn't want to dry is simply because it's a little bit like 1992. It just did not finish well. You did not get that really nice late grain fill conversion, taking those soluble sugars and converting to that hard, firm starch endosperm type of material within the kernel. You did not get a really good black layer formation, kind of a musty, kind of borderline black layer, mostly a brown layer, sometimes no layer formation in the kernel. And when that happens, when you don't get that good conversion, and when there's still sugars present, there's natural yeast that will get a hold of those soluble sugars and actually start a bit of a fermentation process. It's not very efficient fermentation, but it is a type of fermentation. You'll get kind of an alcoholic or ethanol type of compound that the yeast produce out of that fermentation. It'll have a stink to it. If you chew on the kernel, they have kind of a putrid alcoholic type of flavor to them. They're soft, they're mushy, and it's strictly the result of those yeasts working on that soluble sugar. The moisture at that point actually will increase a little bit. It certainly won't drop, and actually it tends to go up slightly in that situation. And it will stay there, it'll hang there, it will eventually dry down, but it takes a long time. You have to leave that crop out over winter before it will, you'll appreciate any kind of semblance of dry down. And with the stock quality and the threats of snow in this area and all those weather concerns, most of you have chosen to take that corn and grind it off, take your lumps right now, and deal with it as best you can. And I certainly understand that. As a little bit of an explanation and an example, I've got something here I'm going to show you, and so watch this next clip very closely. What I've got here is a close-up picture of cob fragments from behind a combine that was out in the field of the type that I just talked about. High moisture, refusing to dry, not yielding very well, and all those associated problems. These actually are chunks of cob fragments that I picked up off the ground after the combine peeled a few rows off the edge of the field just to try and get a sample and see what was going on. And what you can see here, I don't know if I've ever actually seen this before, that's why I brought it up. But what you can see here actually are these kind of white structures that almost look like flower petals in a way. That's actually the kernel skins, where the rotor system literally sucked the guts of the kernel, the guts of that soft, milky, pasty kernel, sucked it right out, left the skins behind, because as we already talked about, this particular part of the ear, the black layer was not even fully formed, wasn't even close. The skins were still attached, and they actually refused to separate from the cob itself. And as it's not hard to visualize, there was a lot of fines and kind of ground up chopped kernels in that sample. The sample, when you pulled up on the truck, got up in the truck and kind of took a whiff, it stunk. And all those associated problems with that semi-alcoholic liquid production out of those soluble sugars in the base of the kernel. So just thought it was an interesting example, a picture that highlighted exactly some of the concerns that we have experienced in certain fields, certain hybrids with this extremely high moisture situation. One other point I wanted to bring up, and that's the subject of yield and plot data. Pioneer has a website that's very easy to use for those of you that are so inclined to search the web on yield data. For yield data, I will post the link to this website in the bottom of the email. But it's fairly simple to use. You just go over here, you click on the yield data tab, and you can migrate across, for example, to corn, and it will scroll up a kind of a summary page showing locations. Each balloon indicates an individual plot location. You click on the little balloon, you get a plot report, and on that plot report it'll give you the individual results for that particular plot, including the ranking, the maturity, moisture, and yield. So for those of you that like searching the web for plots, there it is. Well, we're coming to a close of this particular edition. And what I've done, in addition to posting the link to that plot website, I'm also putting together and attaching to this this video some product information sheets, a small catalog, if you will, of corn hybrids that we think are worth your consideration for the 2020 planting season. Pioneer's had pretty decent performance this year overall, and we're feeling pretty good about the corn hybrids that we have to offer you. And I've also attached some soybean information sheets. We have, of course, our 11A10 identity preserved soybean variety that many elevators are offering premiums for, as well as our pretty decent lineup of Roundup Ready Xtend varieties that you can look at your leisure. The other thing that we need to mention is that December 13th is the date, the last date to take advantage of the Pioneer 15% early pay discount program. I know that some of you that still are struggling with a bit of harvest aren't interested in talking too much about next spring. However, there's a number of you that have done harvest. We've been chatting with you, and we'll be contacting again really soon to talk further about how we can help you out, how we can best serve your needs with respect to seed and other agronomic advice going forward into the 2020 planting season. So thank you for watching, and have a great week and a prosperous. Take care of everybody and look after your families and yourselves. Thank you very much. Take care. Bye.